You know that moment when something inside you says, screw it. I deserve this. Life's too short for all these rules. And then you find yourself eating a lot more food than you intended. Maybe it happens after you've been restricting, or maybe it happens just from thinking about restricting. Today, we're going to explore what's really happening in that screw it moment and why that part of you isn't sabotaging you at all. Welcome to Binge Eating Breakthrough, the podcast to help you stop feeling out of control around food and build trust with your body. If you've tried everything but still feel stuck, you're not alone. I've been there too. I'm Jane Pilger, and I'm here to help you see binge eating in a new way so you can finally break free. Each week, you'll get the tools and insights to create peace with food and your body. Your breakthrough starts now. Hello, trusted listener. I consider you a trusted listener because I trust that you're ready to explore the parts of yourself you might typically judge or push away. I trust that you're willing to get curious about the voice inside that says, screw it. Not to shame it or silence it, but to understand what it's really trying to tell you. And I trust that this conversation might completely shift how you see yourself and your food struggles. Today, we're diving into something that many of you have experienced at some point in your journey with food. Maybe it's happening right now during the holidays, or maybe it's happened at other times in your life, or maybe it happens regularly on a daily basis. It's that part of you, that voice, that energy, that impulse that says, screw it. If you've experienced this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you haven't, you might recognize it in different ways. Maybe as a moment when you suddenly stop caring about the plan you've been following, or when something inside you just wants to say, forget it all. I don't care. This can show up in different ways. Sometimes it happens after you've been following rules or restrictions for days or weeks. But sometimes, especially if you've been in that diet binge cycle for years or decades, it shows up much faster. Maybe you just think about starting a diet or eliminating certain foods, and this part immediately rebels. Maybe you make it through one day or even just a few hours before the screw it energy takes over. It doesn't even require actual restriction. Sometimes just the perceived restriction, the feeling that you should be restricting, or the memory of past restrictions is enough to trigger this part. When it shows up, it might say things like, screw it. I deserve this. The holidays don't count. I'll start fresh on January 1st. Let's just get it all out of the house today and we'll start over tomorrow. Life's too short for all these rules. Just this once. And then you eat. And you keep eating. And afterwards, you feel terrible. You judge yourself. You think, why do I keep doing this? What's wrong with me? Why can't I just have self-control? I know what to do. Why can't I just do it? Now, if you've experienced this, whether it's a regular pattern for you or something that happens occasionally, I want you to understand something important. This screw it part isn't your enemy. It is not sabotaging you. It is not proof that you lack willpower or discipline. In fact, believe it or not, this part is trying to help you. It's trying to give you something you desperately need. And when you can understand what this part really needs, when you can learn to work with it instead of against it, everything changes. Let me explain using a framework that has been incredibly helpful in understanding these dynamics. It's rooted in something called internal family systems, or IFS, but I also work with parts psychology from other teachers' modalities. The core idea is this. We all have different parts of ourselves. Now, these aren't multiple personalities. They're different aspects of who we are, different voices or energies that show up in different situations. So think about it for yourself. You might have a part of you that's ambitious and driven. You might have a part that's cautious and careful. You might have a part that's playful and fun-loving. Another part that's critical and perfectionistic. Now, these parts aren't problems. They're just different aspects of you, each with their own role and each trying to help you in their own way. And that screw it part, it's one of these parts. Here is what's fascinating. This part almost always shows up as a response to another part. So let me paint you a picture of how this typically plays out. You have a part, let's call it the manager, that wants to be in control. I like to think of the manager as holding a clipboard. This is the part that makes plans, follows rules, and tries to be good with food. This part has a list. They're checking it twice. There's the good foods, there's the bad foods. There is being good, there is being bad. Here's all of the rules in all of their different components. The manager says things like, we're not eating sugar this week. We're sticking to the meal plan. This is what we planned. We have to eat this. We are going to be in control and we are going to do this perfectly. And sometimes the manager can maintain this control for weeks or even months. But if you've been in the diet binge cycle for a long time, if you've tried restriction over and over again, the pattern often speeds up. And so now the manager might only be able to maintain control for days or hours, or sometimes not at all. Sometimes just the thought of restricting, just the plan to start a diet is enough to trigger what comes next. Because underneath, there's tension building. The manager's way of operating requires control, restriction, rules, overriding your body's signals, ignoring what you actually want. And whether that's happening for weeks or just in your thoughts about what you should do, it creates pressure. And eventually, another part emerges. This is the screw it part. This part has been watching the manager, or even just sensing the manager's intention to control, and it's had enough. It's exhausted. It's resentful. It feels deprived and controlled and suffocated. So it rebels. Screw it, it says. I'm tired of all these rules. I'm tired of feeling deprived. I'm tired of trying so hard. I deserve to just relax and enjoy myself. Life is too short for all this control. And suddenly, you're eating everything in sight. Not because you lack willpower. Not because you're weak or broken. But because this part of you is desperately trying to give you what the manager wouldn't allow, or what the manager was planning to restrict. Freedom, pleasure, relief, permission to just be. And here's where it gets really interesting. After the screw it part takes over and you eat, maybe you binge. Maybe you just eat more than you planned. Another part shows up to the table. Let's call this one the critic. The critic says, what's wrong with you? You have no self-control. You're never going to change. Why do you keep doing this to yourself? You're so weak. And you feel terrible, ashamed, guilty, defeated. And what do you do in response to feeling terrible? Often you recommit to the manager. Okay, starting tomorrow or Monday or January 1st, I'm going to be even stricter. I'm going to get myself together. I'm going to have even more control and I'm going to do it perfectly this time. Do you see what's happening? You are caught in a cycle. Manager to screw it, critic back to the manager, over and over and over. And the reason you stay stuck in this cycle isn't because you lack willpower or discipline. It's because you're trying to fight against parts of yourself instead of understanding what they need. So let's talk about what the screw it part is really trying to give you. On the surface, it looks like this part just wants food. It wants the cookies, the pizza, the ice cream, all the things the manager said were off limits. But that's not what this part actually wants. Food is just the vehicle. What this part really wants is freedom, permission, relief from all the control and restriction, a break from trying so hard, a chance to just be without all the rules and shoulds and perfectionism. This part is trying to give you the permission that you won't give yourself, the permission to relax, to enjoy, to not be perfect, to just be human. Sound familiar? This is exactly what we talked about in last week's episode, the deeper permission you need to give yourself. If you haven't listened yet, when you're done with this episode, go back and listen to last week's. The screw it part is actually trying to give you that deeper permission. It's just doing it in a way that doesn't work very well because it's operating in reaction to the manager rather than from a place of true self-trust. Here's the thing. The screw it part isn't wrong for wanting these things. Freedom, permission, relief, pleasure. These are all legitimate needs. The problem isn't that this part wants these things. The problem is how it's trying to get them. When this part shows up in reaction to the manager's control, it doesn't give you real freedom. It gives you rebellion. And rebellion always has guilt and shame attached to it because you're doing something that you believe you shouldn't do. I'm going to say this again because I want you to take this in. When the screw it part shows up in reaction to this control, it doesn't give you freedom. It gives you rebellion. That screw it is rebellion. Rebellion has guilt and shame attached because you're doing something you believe you shouldn't do. Real freedom doesn't have guilt attached. Real freedom is making a choice from a place of self-trust, not from a place of screw the rules. So what do we do with this part? How do we work with it instead of against it? First, we get curious. And yes, awareness. Instead of judging this part when it shows up, instead of seeing it as the enemy or proof that you're broken, we get curious about what it's trying to do for you. But we have to notice it first, right? That's why awareness is always the first step. So the next time you feel that screw it energy rising up, I want you to pause, to take a breath, to give yourself a little bit of space and just ask, what does this part need? What is it trying to give me? Maybe it's trying to give you permission to relax. Maybe it's trying to give you relief from all the pressure you've been putting on yourself. Maybe it's trying to give you pleasure or comfort or a sense of rebellion against all of the rules you've been following. And when you can identify what this part is trying to give you, you can start to find other ways to give yourself those things. Ways that actually work. Ways that don't involve guilt and shame and the binge restrict cycle and feeling terrible and full when you put your head on the pillow at night. So let's give you an example. Let's say you notice the screw it part showing up after you've been quote unquote good with food all week. You're at a party. You're looking at the dessert table and you feel this energy of I've been so good. Screw it. I deserve this. Instead of either giving in to that energy or trying to white knuckle your way through it, you pause. You get curious. You ask, what do you need right now? And maybe the answer is, I need permission to enjoy myself. I need to feel like I'm not always having to be perfect and in control. I need to relax. Okay. So how can you give yourself permission to enjoy yourself and relax in a way that actually feels good? Maybe you do eat some dessert, but you do it consciously, with permission, without the screw it energy of rebellion. You choose it. You enjoy it. You don't spiral into shame about it. Or maybe you realize what you actually need isn't the food at all. You need permission to relax in other ways. Maybe you need to leave the party early because you're exhausted. Maybe you need to stop making yourself talk to people you don't want to talk to. Maybe you need to give yourself permission to be imperfect, to not have everything figured out, to just be present without performing. When you can give yourself what this part is really asking for, not the food, but the freedom, the permission, the relief, the screw it energy often dissipates. You don't need to rebel because you're no longer operating from such tight control in the first place. Now, I want to address something that's probably on a lot of your minds right now if you are listening when this episode comes out in December of 2025. January 1st is right around the corner. The screw it part loves January 1st because January 1st becomes the permission structure. It sounds like this. I can eat whatever I want now because I'm going to start fresh on January 1st. The holidays don't count. January 1st is when I'll really get serious. But here's what I need you to understand. January 1st won't change anything if you don't change your approach. I know that might be hard to hear, especially if you're someone who finds hope in fresh starts and new beginnings. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with setting intentions or making changes. But if you're using January 1st or Monday or the 1st of the next month, whenever you are listening to this, as a way to justify the screw it energy now, if you're bargaining with yourself saying it's okay to eat this way now because I'll be perfect starting on the 1st, you're just setting yourself up for another round of the cycle. Because what happens on the 1st? The manager comes back with a vengeance. Okay, now we're going to be strict. There's maybe a few more pieces of paper on that clipboard. Now we're going to follow all the rules. Maybe we're even going to add a few extra rules because we've been reading more. We've been listening to more podcasts. We got more rules that really might fix us this time. Now we're going to do it perfectly. And what happens when the manager shows up with that much control and rules and restriction and rigidity? Eventually, the screw it part comes back because nothing has actually changed. You're still operating from the same pattern. Control and rigidity leading to rebellion and guilt. The real work isn't about waiting for January 1st or the 1st of whatever month to start over. The real work is about understanding this cycle now and starting to do something different now. And that something different is this: learning to work with your parts, both the part that wants the structure and the part that wants freedom, instead of letting them fight each other. Yes, you can have structure and freedom. Structure can even create freedom. So here's what this looks like in practice. You acknowledge the manager part of you, values health and taking care of yourself. That's beautiful. It's important. But you also help this part understand that control and rigidity aren't the only ways to take care of yourself. And in fact, they often backfire. You acknowledge that the screw it part of you needs freedom and permission and relief, which is also beautiful and important. But you help this part understand that rebellion isn't freedom. It's just another form of being controlled. controlled by the reaction against the manager. Real freedom comes when you can integrate both parts, when you can take care of yourself and give yourself permission to be imperfect, when you can have structure and flexibility, when you can make choices that honor your body's needs without rigid rules or rebellious eating. And this is exactly the work I do with my clients. We don't just talk about food and eating patterns. We explore these parts. We understand what they're trying to do. We help them learn to work together instead of against each other. And when that happens, the binge restrict cycle starts to dissolve. Not because you've developed more willpower or discipline, but because you are no longer at war with yourself. Now, if you're listening to this and recognizing these patterns in yourself, if you're seeing how the manager and the screw it part have been running your life, especially around food, I want you to know you do not have to stay stuck in this cycle. This pattern can change, but it can be hard to do it alone, especially when you're in the middle of it. When you can't really see the parts, you just feel like you are the part. You can't see them. And this is exactly why I offer one-on-one coaching. In our work together, we identify these parts. We understand what they're trying to do for you. We help them find new ways of taking care of you, ways that don't involve the binge restrict cycle, that don't involve fighting yourself. I have a few spots open right now for one-on-one coaching. And if you're ready to stop fighting yourself and start working with yourself, if you're ready to break free from this cycle, not just for January, but for good, I would love to talk with you. You can schedule a breakthrough call with me, and you'll find that link in the show notes. And whether you work with me or not, here's what I want you to take away from today's episode. The screw it part of you is not your enemy. It is not sabotaging you. It is not proof that you're weak or broken. This part is trying to help you. It's trying to give you permission, freedom, relief, all things that you legitimately need. The problem isn't this part. The problem is the cycle that it's caught in. The cycle of control and rebellion and restriction and binge, manager and screw it part fighting each other over and over. But you can break this cycle, not with more willpower, not by waiting for the first of the month, but by learning to work with these parts of yourself instead of against them. So this week, I invite you to get curious. When you notice that screw it energy showing up, don't judge it. Don't try to fight it. And instead, just pause. Give yourself some space. Take a deep breath and ask, what does this part need? What is it trying to give me? And then see if you can find a way to give yourself what this part is asking for. Not through rebellious eating, but through genuine permission, real freedom, true self-care. There is no deadline for this work. January 1st does not matter. What matters is right now, this moment, your willingness to see yourself with compassion and curiosity instead of shame and judgment. Your body is always communicating with you. And these parts, the manager, the screw it part, the critic, all of them are part of that communication. Learning to listen, learning to understand, learning to work with yourself instead of against yourself, that's the path to real lasting freedom. Now, next week, we're going to explore something that connects to this in a powerful way. The greatest gift you can give yourself this holiday. Because when you understand what you truly need, not what you think you should want, but what you actually need, everything about how you show up for yourself can shift. And until then, remember, you are not broken. You are not weak. You are just caught in a pattern, and patterns can be changed. That's what I have for you today. I'll see you next week. If you've been trying to stop binge eating and nothing has worked, there's a reason. I created the Binge Breakthrough miniseries to help you finally understand what's driving your binge eating beneath the surface so that you can actually start to change it. Each video is short and they're designed to give you the clarity and direction you've been missing so you can stop feeling stuck and start finding your way out. Start watching now at janepilger.com/mini. That's janepilger.com/mini. MINI.